It's engaging, informative,
top-notch.
Talk that I like,
Top-notch.
politics I like.
That's how you gotta roll.
I've never been so disturbed and so excited.
This is the Unforced Turnovers Podcast, talking sports, society, and life in general. Here's your host, Ray Palma.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the second edition, the second ever episode of the Unforced Turnovers Podcast. I'm your host, Ray Palma, alongside my co-host, Wu-Tang. For anyone that doesn't know, Wu-Tang is my 12, maybe 14-pound Shih Tzu, who will be here and join me as my co-host, but he's more like Monty from Major League. He's the quiet type, but once in a while, he may chime in as always. Wu-Tang has been my rock throughout this whole pandemic process, let me tell you. He is somebody who has been the one human being, or I shouldn't even say human being, but the one living creature that I get to see every day and talk to and share all my ideas with. And he's a great listener, so I want to give a quick shout out to Wu-Tang as him and I have become great friends throughout this process. As I'm sure a lot of people have been put in situations where they're seeing people a lot more often during this pandemic. There's a lot of jokes out there that you'll see a lot of divorces and a lot of babies. You'll see a lot of divorces caused by being together too much. And you'll see a lot of babies in about 9 months for being together too much. And that's probably going to be the byproduct and many byproducts of this pandemic. We may do a pandemic episode in the future, but for right now, no, we're not. Today, we're going to get back to just talking some sports like we like to do on this show. Do we want to give a quick shout out, though, here on Staten Island, a lot of people misplaced. I want to shout out all nurses, doctors, EMS workers, Sanitation gets left out of this a lot. Can you imagine if they weren't around and they just stopped coming to work? They would literally be garbage everywhere. I don't think sanitation I think sanitation should be mixed in with all these other phenomenal people doing phenomenal things while I get to sit home and still collect my checks. I'm lucky enough to have a city job that continues to pay throughout this process. Sit home and still have to work, but nonetheless do it all from home, and I don't have to put myself or expose myself to any dangers and all this insanity that's going on out there. But to all you nurses and doctors and physician's assistants and healthcare workers and ambulance drivers and pretty much anyone that's forced to go to work right now, God bless you. You're in my thoughts, and God willing, we can all get through this and back to a society where we can all get back to some form of normalcy. Also, a quick shout out to people keeping me fed throughout this. While I have managed to learn to cook a few things for myself here, if you're unaware, I'm 41 years old, a bachelor. It's just me and Wu-Tang here in my house, so there's not many opinions or any other thoughts as far as dinner and things like that. So it's kind of fending for myself every night. Usually I would find myself eating out and things like that, having dinner with friends, stuff like that. But now that's all taken away. So we're all forced to kind of fend for ourselves. Well, luckily here in West Brighton, I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have so many great restaurants with great owners that keep me fed. My guy John Venturella down at Randall Manor Tavern, just a phenomenal blue cheeseburger, great menu, underrated place here in West Brighton. You really got to go check it out. Jody's Club Forest, a staple here in the neighborhood, a place where people have gone for eons. My father worked for Verizon, or back then it was probably Bell Atlantic or 9X or some other name. And my father, knowing Mr. Haggerty from working across the street all those years. Quick story, years ago, the foreman, my father's boss, took my father and people over for drinks after work, right across the street. If you know the phone companies, right across the street from Jody's over there. And the bartender, whoever the bartender may have been, would not serve my father, because my father was probably 19, 20 years old, underage. And my father told the foreman that. The foreman went to Jody and said, Jody, if my employee here can't drink, then we're all leaving. And Jody immediately served my father a beer and kept it moving. And Terrence Haggerty continues that tradition for his late father, Jody, that we all miss, and keeps the restaurant going. They're doing takeout, deliveries, curbside, all that. If you want a real special place, Kettle Black, too. Kettle Black is run by my guy, Dave Shea, one of the finest people you're ever going to meet. Phenomenal wings, man. Just great buffalo wings. I know they have specials Mondays and Thursdays. Mondays and Wednesdays, I think, wing-wise. But there's a special every day of the week for different things. Phenomenal food. None of these guys are paying me, by the way, nor would I want them to. This is all just from the bottom of my heart. A thank you, I guess, to acknowledge them for putting food in my big belly and keeping me fed. Because throughout this pandemic, the one thing I still can do and enjoy is food. It's taken a lot away from me. It's taken my students from me, my players from me. It's taken basketball from me. It's taken watching sports from me. It's taken me getting to give my mother a hug. It's taken, I shouldn't say me, it's from all of us. It's taken that from all of us, at least all of us practicing social distancing. And really from the bottom of my heart, all those guys. And don't forget my guy Cormac Gordon too down there, new owner down at Duffy's. They're closed as of now, but I'm sure hopefully sometime in the near future will be opening up. Anybody that knows West Brighton, or anybody that knows Staten Island knows about Duffy's. Phenomenal establishment that as of press time now is still closed due to the pandemic, but I'm sure he'll be opening back up. You can go there, see my guy Jimmy Roba, bartend Saturday nights, hopefully soon again. I can't wait to get back to that, man. Let me tell you, I'm getting off track here, but I really can't wait until that first day. As a West Brighton guy, I've enjoyed many a days, many a nights, partying with friends. I don't even say partying, but just enjoying time, drinking with friends. And I really can't wait till that day we can all just go back and meet up and just watch the game and BS and talk about sports and talk about our families and, and see all my friends and my friends' wives and my friends' kids and whatever else it may be. That first day back, though, let me tell you, that first day back, if they let's just say 2 weeks before, say on June 1st, they say on June 15th, the bars will be open. If there's like a day, a time, a place, that day, West Brighton, Forest Avenue, we're going to make St. Patty's Day look like a small get-together. We're going to tear that place apart. I mean in the nicest way possible, in the best way possible. A good tearing apart. We're going to tear it apart. We're going to go there and we're going to spend our money in those places, and I'm going to make sure all the establishments I just mentioned, I'm going to make sure I get my fat self to all of them. Go back there, support all of them, and just get back to what we took for granted. I took for granted being able to go meet Mike B for a beer. I took for granted just texting the boys going, hey, anybody out? Leaving practice on a Saturday afternoon, driving home, shoot out a mass text trying to find somebody. Where might you be? Can I go join you for a drink at Rusty's? Maybe over to the beer garden. Maybe go hang out with my guys over there. The beer garden, also another fantastic place, open, doing deliveries, open every day till 8 o'clock. I miss that. It sucks. One thing I miss an awful lot, and I'm sure many people agree, is sports. I make no qualms about it. Sports is a gigantic factor in my life, a big to-do, a big everything. I became an educator because I wanted to be a coach. I'm proud to say I now evolved. Now I am an educator who also coaches. But I got to be honest, when I first started, all I wanted to do was coach. And I wanted to coach for my love of sport. Now, the NBA being suspended, can't come home, turn the Knicks on. Now, you might be laughing because you think the Knicks. Well, I love the Knicks. I like to watch, even when we're terrible. I've put a lot of time with that team. And that the last podcast will certainly explain my love and dedication to an organization that has shown no love to me whatsoever, or love to any Knicks fan in the last 25 years for that matter. But nonetheless, we miss sports. So, in trying to think of something we could do to discuss sports, I thought of what are we missing out on now? And while the Knicks were on a couple of days a week, now this time of the year, when it was April-ish, and we would be on April break right now. Actually, I would be in Arizona at this moment right now. The time right now is 6:33 Eastern time. Right now, I would be playing the Phoenix Open course. I can't think of the name of the course, the Champions course or the Stadium course at the Phoenix. Where they play the Phoenix Open professional golf tournament. I was going to be there right now. I'd be playing. I'm not good at math, but probably on the first or second tee because of the 3-hour difference. I'd be there right now. I'd be golfing with some good friends and Brian Riley, Mikey Bellucci, Brian Lina, a.k.a. the Ass Man. We had a little trip planned and unfortunately had to cancel. Sorry, I just thought about that and got sidetracked. But the one thing I miss the most, again, keep saying the most when there is no rankings, I miss coming home and watching the Yankees. The Yankees, 7 o'clock during the week. If they're on the West Coast, 10 o'clock. Sometimes like Chicago, those places, there's an 8 o'clock start. All home games, though, 7 o'clock. Even though during the week last year, actually went to 6:30 first pitch, which was great. As I get older, the earlier starts, the better. But I miss it. I miss coming home. It was like having a TV show on every night. Something to watch. Did you have to stare at the TV and lock in? No, I could get work done with the Yankees on in the background. I could, do my grades, or I could get basketball stuff ready, whatever I need to do. Make dinner, order dinner, whatever it would be. I could do that with the Yankees on. And this just sucks without baseball. If you know my father is a great man. I was raised I wanted for nothing my entire life. But he wasn't exactly Danny Tanner. Wasn't a lot of sit down, put me on the knee moments where he gave me long speeches and stuff. My father was big on, figuring shit out for yourself. But the one thing we did share, the one thing that from birth that I can remember that was etched into our minds was that we were Yankee fans. And you could tell that because in other sports, my father's a Packers fan, which is odd, and I never even considered that. My brothers are 49er and Cowboy fans, respectively. So football went all over the place. My father actually is not much of a basketball fan outside of, obviously I think he roots for my teams. But other than that, not much of a basketball fan. So with the Knicks, my younger brother Chris inherited the Knicks with me when my brother Brian elected to become a Celtics fan, which was front running back in the day. Then it became good again. Nonetheless, he did stick with them. But the one consistent thing was the Yankees. From birth, I'm very lucky. Had a chance to go to a lot of games. Any of my friends know from back in the day, we used to go to significant amounts of Yankee games, playoff games, World Series games. I've been very blessed to have experienced so much with the Yankees. And I take great pride in doing that with my old man. When I got older and made my own money, I was able to do nice things. Like I took him to the Yankees Insider Experience, which I recommend to people if you haven't done it, if you want to treat a family member or take someone. It's a little pricey, but you go and you take a tour of the stadium, you see everything from the inside. They have a Q&A session. We did ours with Didi Gregorius. I can tell you one thing, Didi Gregorius might be the most well-rounded kid in the universe. Tall, too. I mean, nice, long, 6'4", gigantic hands. Like, when he shook my hand, I was like, my goodness, his hands are huge. What a nice kid. But the day was just special, good day for me and my old man, and I recommend that for anybody want to take their old man somewhere, or take their kid, or go with a buddy. It's called the Yankees Insider Experience, something to look into. Although you can't go now, because they're not giving tours of anything, because quite frankly, we're in one of the worst situations in U.S. history. So, to end this rambling rant, I decided to come up with something that we could use to talk about baseball. How could we talk baseball? Well, here in New York, there are some people who root for different teams. Some of the older folk may root for the Dodgers from Brooklyn, and I totally respect that. And there's some people who are raised for different reasons, different households, and they root for different teams. For the most part, the vast majority of hearing people on Staten Island or any other borough are either Yankee fans, Met fans, or not baseball fans. You're usually one of the three. Having a different team be your favorite team is not common. I think it's less common than in other sports. Like in New York, if you ask how many people are Knicks fans or Net fans, I bet you there's just as many Golden State Warrior fans, quote-unquote fans, because they're all front runners, but regardless, or Laker fans, or you get a lot more of I'm a Kobe fan, or I'm a LeBron fan, or I'm a whoever fan, R.I.P. Kobe, of course. You'll get, even in football, people that follow, I'm a Patriots fan, things like that. You don't get that in New York with baseball, at least from my experiences. Baseball's a little more rudimentary, a little more firm as far as, we stay local with our baseball. And again, respects to, I know a lot of people, my older gentlemen friends and family that are from Brooklyn and were Dodgers fans back in the day and certainly stuck with them. So God bless them. But for everyone, for the most part, Yankee and Met fans. So what I decided to do was we're going to create an all-time Yankee lineup, an all-time Yankee team. I shouldn't say all-time. Yankee/Mets. Best team we can come up with. Best starting lineup plus rotation, bullpen, closer. But starting in 1985. The reason we're starting in 85 is a few reasons. One, I'm 41. I was born in 78. So I don't want to talk about things I didn't see. It's not fair of me to talk about guys who played before. Like, I didn't watch Yogi Berra. I didn't watch guys... I didn't watch Babe Ruth. I didn't even want Don Mattingly. I mean, Don Mattingly was like where mine started. So anything pre-Mattingly, pre-Keith Hernandez, I don't remember. I don't know any of this stuff, So I can only speak to what I know. I think 85 was a good year. It gives the Mets, 1 year at least where they did have a World Series win, and obviously it all falls into the Yankee dynasties that come up years later. So that window, 85, makes it about a 25-year. 35 years, 85, carrying the mail. 35-year gap of baseball that's been played here in New York. And what we did was we created an all-time team. Now, I asked people, I didn't ask aggressively. After collecting the data sheets, I probably should have asked people. Some people take it more serious. Maybe I should have asked other people that were more baseball people. But I did a good mix. I did a mix of Yankee fan, Met fan, passionately aggressive baseball fans, combined with moderate baseball fans. I asked them to give me a team. I asked them to give me your top player at each position from 1985 on, playing for the Mets and the Yankees, based on regular season success only. Nothing to do with the playoffs, because that obviously would not be any fair to any Met fans. So we wanted to keep it on regular season only. I told them that longevity could be your decision. Longevity, how much you wanted to place into longevity for who you wanted to put in your lineup was up to you. If a player playing, like someone like Bernie Williams played 16, 17 seasons, and you want to take him over a guy who played 6, that's fine. But if you want to take the guy who played 6 but had 6 great ones over Bernie, that makes sense too. This was whoever you thought you would want to put in a lineup to win a big game on a big night, or big day, or whatever. So we asked guys for a catcher, a first baseman, a second baseman, a shortstop, a third baseman, left field, center field, right field, starting pitcher 1, starting pitcher 2, starting pitcher 3, starting pitcher 4, starting pitcher 5. We asked for a left-handed sit-up reliever, a right-handed sit-up reliever. I did not give the option for closer because I didn't want to argue with anybody. So Mariano was just named the closer. We put him in there. He's kind of like in the NBA. If you ever want to have the best dunk of all time conversation, I should say best dunk on somebody, you can only do the conversation for number 2, because Vince Carter over Frederick Weiss is number 1. There's no debating that. Don't give me any crap. Don't try and compare anything to that. Vince Carter in the Olympics over Weiss, number 1. Kind of the same thing here. If you want to discuss closers, especially you want to discuss closers ever to pick up a baseball, it's Mariano. Much less in Yankee Mets arguments from 1985 on. And then a pinch hitter. And when I did pinch hitter, we did it. I'll explain pinch hitter when we get to it. But we allowed you to pick anybody not in your original lineup. But we'll cover that more as we get to it. So we wanted to go from 85 on. We covered positions. We didn't want to cover other things. Quite frankly, it's very Yankee lopsided. I mean, general managers or management, as you know, the Yankees have been whether a World Series team or whatever, they've always been a high payroll team, very successful business-wise, whereas the Mets are an unmitigated disaster, remain as such. The recent sale of the team to Cohen. Cohen was a billionaire ready to buy the team, and the Wilpons decided at the last minute to try and change the language of the contract in typical Wilpon fashion, and the deal fell through. They lost a billionaire owner. And this is kind of the track record with the Mets and their ownership. It's a really, real crappy situation over there, and I feel for their fans. Shout out Jason McGinley, one of my true Met fan friends, and a lot of other guys out there who, and I break chops with them all the time, and will continue to do so. But I do generally feel some sadness for them because they've been stuck in an unwinnable situation for so long, fighting an uphill battle. Hopefully the Mets can continue to strive and scrap. But back, as far as management goes, there's no comparison over the last 30 years. Management-wise, the Yankees have been far superior. Both teams are relatively new stadiums. Citi Field, it gets praised a lot, and while I'm not one to bash it, my only thing is, it's great that you have Shake Shack, but if the Mets are playing the Yankees, the only reason I would go to Citi Field. The Mets playing the Yankees plays sold out. You can't get the lines are out the door. There's no way you could possibly win that line. You're missing 3 innings worth. So it's a nice thing to have, but what's good of having it if you can't get any? I found that to be my only complaint about Citi Field. Otherwise, beautiful place, nice stadium. Although the Jackie Robinson Rotunda makes much sense to me because Jackie Robinson played as many innings for the Mets as I have. So to name a part of your building after someone never played for you is kind of odd. But hey, listen, what am I to judge? Met fans. Management-wise, from as far as personnel goes, I mean, the Mets have had a revolving door. I mean, Omar Minaya has left and come back, and I think left again during the time frame Brian Cashman's run the Yankees. And you can say what you want with the Cashman, but the Cashman gets stuff done. So from a management standpoint, from a success standpoint, there's really not much comparison to the Yankee Mets over this time frame. But that's not going to matter here, because here we're talking about individuals. Individual players, individual accomplishments. We're taking the playoffs out of it. We're taking the team success part of it out of it. The only thing we're talking about is production. Better baseball player, better hitter, better pitcher. And yes, of course, you got to consider defense. So what we did was we went through and I tallied up all of the votes from the, I believe, 19 teams I had submitted, did a little math equation, figured it all out, and I created a team based on the suggestions. And then I created my own team. So as we go along, position by position, I will give you what the people said, and I'll give you my opinion. I will give you my opinion at each position. We'll discuss it a little bit. When I say discuss it, I'll basically talk to myself, because there's nobody else here. Nonetheless, we will talk about it and just kind of create something to do. The way to talk some baseball, which I love so much. Maybe you can create a discussion. Any discussions, questions, comments, the email is unforcedturnoverspodcast@gmail.com. With those who know me personally, obviously you can just reach out to me, text me, Facebook, Raymond Palma, or Ray Palma maybe on Facebook. Let me see, Instagram. I just created all this stuff for the show. So Instagram is the Unforced Turnovers Podcast. There's a Twitter, I think. Doing my best to catch up with all this stuff. But honestly, it's just a way to get this podcast information out to everybody. Hopefully people are listening. I doubt they are. And I don't really care either way. I'll look back on this, nothing else myself. And I love talking baseball. I love listening to people that are knowledgeable talk sports. And I do consider myself knowledgeable, so I hope that I'm one of them, and I hope that I can share some of my thoughts, my opinions with everybody. So we're going to start with our first position. But before we do that, we're going to get into our first Zoodoo break. Zoodoo break coming on up.
Let the game begin. You know I came within. A planet bit you in. The click A brains to twins. Give shame to sins. Take pain within. I spread it on a beat. It's the same as fins. From a shark. In the dark I'm trained to pin. Her ankles to his shoulders, man. I tame the clip. Flame is lit. She wants some more. She wants it raw. She can't ignore. Guys, I'm with the aura. I gotta just pass him the ball of IB. No head, you get deaded on a call of ID. Take the mic and
all right, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the first Zoodoo break of this show. We're going to get right into it. So, New York Mets, New York Yankees, 1985 on. From the 1985, the first pitch of the 85 season until the first pitch of last season, because we don't have anything for this year yet. So, that's what matters. Those are the stats you can use, your memories, your feelings, who you think's better for whatever particular reason, who you'd rather have in your team. Okay, so the criteria in very short terminology was had to have played for the Yankees and or the Mets. In many cases, many guys played for both. And they had to have played from 85 to now. So if you pick a guy that played pre-85, that's fine, but the only stats you could use, the only things that factored in was 85 and above. Some guys played for the Mets or Yankees prior to 85 and still made some teams along the way. So that's what we're doing. We're building a team from beginning to end. So we're putting a starting catcher, first base, second base, shortstop, third base, right field, left field, center field. We're going to have a pinch hitter, a starting staff, full staff, starting pitcher 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right-handed reliever, left-handed reliever as setup guys, and then Mariano as the closer. I made Mariano the closer. I didn't give people a chance to vote for closer. I didn't want the situation where people made Mariano the setup guy and Wetland or Chapman or I would say a Met, but quite frankly, there's no Met closer we're going to slide in there. I didn't want to do any of that because I wanted, when I looked back in the future, in the future, looking back on this podcast, I wanted to see Mariano as the closer. There's perfect logic for Mariano being a setup guy because you could argue that he was more dangerous as a setup man, pitching those 3 innings. I mean, 96, he was absolutely amazing. And I'm not denying that that's a legitimate argument. But for my show, my rules, I wanted Mariano as the closer. So Mariano's out of the bullpen as the closer. And we'll talk more about right-handed, left-handed setup guys when we get to that portion of the program. But I want to start. I'm not even going to tell you the position. I'm going to start with one that the voting was not. The player who won the voting received 10 votes. Second place had 6 votes. And there was another guy with 2. And 2 other guys split 1 vote each. Okay. So for this position, we're going to start here. I'm going to give you a player A, player B scenario. Let's go player A first. Player A. Now, these stats, mind you, are just with the Yankees and or the Mets. In this case, one player only played for one team. So neither one played for both teams, I should say. So these stats are only while the player was on the Yankees and or Mets. Player A, 1,509 games. He hit for 283, a 283 average. 351 home runs, which for this time period from 85 on is the leader. He is the leader by far. He has 58 more than second place, which is Strawberry. So 58 more home runs than Strawberry, again, during this time frame from 85 on. He has 1,096 RBIs and 1,012 runs. So 1,509 in games, 283 average, 351, 1096, and 1012. Player B, in 1,585 games, had a 296 average, 242 home runs, 970 RBIs, 949 runs. So player B had played in 76 more games, which is more opportunities, and he had a better average. He hit for 13 points higher over his Met career. I gave away a little bit of a hint there. He had 109 less home runs, 126 less RBIs, and 63 less runs scored. Again, this is in 76 more games played, more opportunities. You want to go best season. When we told people to pick, we told them you can pick longevity. You can take a guy because he was on your team for so long that even though the stats may not match up, you trust him. But you can also just go with best season because we were saying you could get the player at his best. And that was mostly my logic. I picked most of my teams. I didn't use longevity a lot for mine, but some people did, and that was part of the criteria, which is good. Player A, his best season would hit 314 with 54 and 156. 143 runs scored, which led the league, and 24 steals. He led the league with the home runs, the RBIs, and the runs scored. Okay, player B hit 302, 33 home runs, 124 RBIs, 113 runs scored, and 15 steals. In this particular case, player A dominated in all facets. Not even close. 21 more home runs, better average by 12 points, 32 RBIs better, 30 runs differential, even 9 steals. If you haven't figured it out, because 6 people said they'd rather have David Wright playing third base, and that's just insane to me. You can vote with your heart, and I guess that's what Met fans did here, because I noticed there's no Yankee fan from what I looked at. I noted who was Yankee fan, who was a Met fan, and no Yankee fan picked David Wright, and I guess some Met fans picked with their hearts. That's the only way anyone could ever say, I'm going to take David Wright ahead of Alex Rodriguez, is from the heart. It ain't from the brain, it ain't from the stats, and it's not what any manager in baseball history would do. Any manager in baseball history, even Joe Torre, who once demoted A-Rod to 8th, would bat A-Rod, maybe bat him 8th, but he would put in the lineup ahead of David Wright. Better ball player. Simply put, is he a better human being? No. David Wright's a great guy. Class act, was amazing after 9/11. Just along a lot of the Mets, Bobby Valentine, and that whole crew was amazing after 9/11. So David Wright's a great person, and what happened to him physically was devastating and sad for all of sports. As a sports fan first, you feel bad for him, but David Wright's not Alex Rodriguez, and he's not as a Yankee. You can make I guess some people may have thought the numbers wouldn't have been as dominant. That A-Rod's great numbers came from Texas, which he had mind-blowing numbers in Texas, and he had some mind-blowing numbers in Seattle. He won MVP. He won MVP with the Yankees, too. 314, 54, and 156. That's a season right there. That's an 07 for A-Rod. Alex Rodriguez would be on a shadow of a doubt is the third baseman for any team. He probably is the best third baseman of all time if you play him at third base. But there's debates for other people in other teams, in other eras, ahead of Alex Rodriguez, I guess you could make, even though statistically probably not. But there's no debate. Alex Rodriguez, way ahead of David Wright in just about every aspect of the game. I can't think of an attribute, that I can't think of a measurable, something you could put in the back of a card. You say, oh, David Wright's much better at this. Because they both weren't great defensively. A-Rod's strong arm, not always the most accurate. Good range. They both had about the same amount of range. Neither one was Pagliarulo over there, though. So, all right, so we got to third base. Third base on both teams now. So the teams came down to, the field with the guys that picked and me. So the field picked A-Rod, although 6 people voted for Wright. We had 2 for Howard Johnson. Howard Johnson had some impressive numbers. It wasn't I don't think that you could put him in a scenario where he's ahead of these guys. But, Howard Johnson was, 9 seasons, a 251 average, 192 home runs, 626 RBIs. He had a good run, Howard Johnson. Another vote with the Robin Ventura. Ventura, I didn't realize how good he was as a Met. Had some really strong seasons with the Mets. One good season with the Yankees. But he had all 3 of his seasons with the Mets. Very impressive. His numbers-wise and the way he played with the Mets at least put him in the conversation. When I first saw that somebody put him there, I was a little surprised. I didn't think that he quite belonged, or even in the conversation. But Wright, but Ventura had his year 301, 32, and 120 playing for the Mets. So, some of these numbers you'll see them and they kind of remind you of certain things. So that's third base. So after tabulating all the votes for third base, Alex Rodriguez with 10 votes for third base is the winner amongst the field. The field are the people that took their time to fill out these sheets for me. I asked them to think about it and come up with their all New York Yankee, New York Met team from 85 on. So third base, Alex Rodriguez, both in the field and on Coach Palmer's team, my team, the Unforced. I'm going to call it the Unforced Turnovers podcast team. So A-Rod, third base for both teams. Now, before we move to the next position, I want to make sure I quickly give a shout out to everybody who took the time to fill out a form for me. I should keep saying fill out a form. There was no form to fill out. No one wrote me anything by hand. This is all digital. So I don't know why I'm saying that. Probably because I'm old. But took the time to think about it and read the criteria I gave them and formulate teams based on positions and things like that. So my guy, the King of Kings, Brian Beresford, thank you very much. And my guy, Ray Magnuski, Jeff Ahern, producer himself, Mark Cristoforo, my guy, Mark D, despite having 17 children, still found a way to do this for me. My guy, John Avito, out there in Jersey. My guy, Jimmy Clark, out there running his own little baseball academy with his kids in the backyard, I see. My guy, Sean McGill, keeping the city safe. My cousin Heather, who clearly did not read the rules and broke several, and we'll get to that at some point. But she had, to her excuse, she's actually stuck in, I'm going to get it wrong. She teaches in a foreign country, like, I want to say like Saudi Arabia, probably wrong. She's probably pissed off me right now if she is listening to this. But she teaches somewhere really far away, and she's kind of stuck there now with Corona. But she took some time to fill out a form for me. My guy, Kevin Howell. Kev Howell lost a bet to me before the season last year. He said we made a bet that the Yankees Mets over-unders. The Met over-under for the season, I think, was 81, and the Yankees was 9, as far as wins. 81 wins for the Mets, and it was 94 for the Yankees, I think. So I gave him plus 13 with the Yankees. So who would have more wins on the season? Yankees, Mets, but I gave him 13 wins. So if the Mets won 83 games, the Yankees won 96, it would have been a tie. Of course, anytime you bet the Mets against the Yankees, bad things are going to happen. And he lost the wager. The wager was the loser had to wear the other guy's hat as his Facebook profile picture for 60 days. Listen, had I lost, which would never have happened because I bet the Yankees against the Mets, but if I had, I would have worn the hat. I would have been awful. I would have been shamed. I may have quit social media after that, but I would have worn the hat. But Kevin hasn't done that. No one really knows why. Every time I see him on social media, we ask him, do the right thing, Kev. Do the right thing. Well, he says he's going to do it soon. I don't know. I don't believe him. My guy, Coach Melios, better known as Doc's dad at this point. My guy, Dan Melios, big Met fan at the time to do it. My guy, Jeff Giovanello. Jeff, a jack of all trades. And a big fan of McRib, like myself. My brother, Brian. My uncle, Ricky. My guy, Patty Emery, the people's champ. My guy, Glenn Van Pelt, baseball player in his own day. My guy, Danny Lanigan. He'll be a subject of discussion next. My guy, the Fiend, Jay Wyatt. Big baseball guy, big Met fan. But more importantly, I think Jay, like myself, we've had some passionate arguments over the years, but I think both of us are baseball fans first. My guy, Brian Riley, and my guy, D. Lee, both of them big-time Met fans, and more importantly, great guys. So, and my guy, Cormac Gordon. So those are the 20 guys. I think I named everybody, at least I hope I did, that contributed and moved on. So, went from third base, go to shortstop. Shortstop's the obvious one. Well, you would think shortstop would be unanimous, but here we are. Unforced Turnovers podcast history has been made because we have somebody who decided that they were going to be that Hall of Fame voter. That one guy who didn't vote for Jeter. Danny Lanigan, who much like me is a high school hoops coach, put Gleyber Torres at shortstop. And listen, I'm not questioning Gleyber Torres being on a team, but when you're leaving out Derek Jeter, you're stepping out there and putting yourself in the criticism lane. And so I looked and tried to see if there's any statistical analysis for that, but no, there's not. It's Derek Jeter. He has 3,465 hits. He's 7th all-time in at-bats, 6th all-time in said hits, 3,465. 9th all-time in runs. That means when the guy comes around and scores, he did that 1,923 times, the 9th most ever in baseball history. For a guy who doesn't hit home runs, that's quite impressive. At least doesn't hit home runs from the big numbers. Not hitting home runs and not being a run producer is the reason that Derek Jeter wasn't a constant MVP, because MVP run-producing numbers tend to lead towards MVPs. But as far as leading the league in runs and hits on several occasions, actually led the league in hits towards one of his last seasons. After struggling for a year, came back, bounced back from injury, and showed some greatness, as Jeter could only do. Career numbers, career .310 hitter, 2,747 games, 1,311 RBIs, 1,923 runs scored. Derek Jeter. I mean, there's not much more to say. There's a few. You could pick his best season. One year in '99, 349 with 24 and 102. That year he had 219 hits. You can go. Let's see. Years 06, 343, 14 home runs, 97, 214 hits. Good God, anywhere you can go. Even 2012, 2012 was the second to last year of his career, the third before the injury. In 2012, he had 216 hits, led the American League. Just, one of the undoubtedly the best baseball players of all time. Now, the Hall of Fame vote makes sense. I'm not defending it. I don't agree with the person. But if the person's logic was only the best ever at the position, or someone who was the best or dominated the game, Jeter didn't do quite that. He didn't do what Mariano did. He wasn't the best closer ever. So if you want to tell me that because Ozzie Smith and because Ripken and because a lot of other greats were not unanimous, that Jeter wasn't unanimous, okay, I could get it. I don't agree. I think he's unanimous. I mean, Derek Jeter belongs in the Hall of Fame. But as far as this poll goes, to pick a first-year shortstop, a guy who's barely played short, actually, for the Yankees, spent a lot more time at second base, but will be our shortstop of the future. And listen, Torres is awesome. I mean, Torres has the potential to be somebody that could be our shortstop and could become better than Jeter. I'm not saying down the road this would be impossible, but no one in their right mind, except for apparently Danny Lanigan, would put anyone other than Derek Jeter at shortstop. But going forward here, we'll talk more about Torres when we get to second base. We get to second base right now, because second base, there's quite a few guys at second base over the last so many years with the Yankees. You have Robinson Cano stand out the most. Cano with 9 seasons with the Yankees and then 1 with the Mets. Alfonso Soriano, 7 seasons with the Yankees. Edgardo Alfonso, a strong 8 seasons with the Mets. Roberto Alomar had 2 seasons with the Mets. Not really. He was on someone's list, not necessarily someone you would strongly consider because his numbers with the Mets weren't that great. But in his day, Roberto Alomar was amazing. Willie Randolph, his career started pre-85, so his career mixes up a little bit with 85. Willie Randolph was a phenomenal baseball player and great defensive player. And then Gleyber Torres, 2 years with Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres had some spectacular seasons. Gleyber Torres so far, has shown the ability to hit the home run. Now, if you want to question Torres, I guess you can say, out of his, I think he had 38 last year, a lot of them against Baltimore. Over 10 to 12 home runs against the Orioles themselves. For some reason, the Orioles kept pitching against him. I don't know. I should say pitching against him, pitching to him, giving him balls to hit. I don't really know why. So when I thought about second base, I personally had Torres in mind. I was going to put Torres. I didn't at the end. Despite the fact that he was a little inconsistent, and despite the fact he looked like he didn't care often, I had to go with Robinson Cano. The guy's one of the best right-handed hitters. When he's right, one of the best pure right-handed hitters I've ever seen. He's just too smooth, too good, too pretty. 217 home runs, 861 RBIs, 845 runs. Just couldn't bring myself with 2 years of Torres to immediately jump ship on someone as strong as him. Soriano, again, Soriano was great. I think Cano was a little more consistent. Cano was good defensively, just lazy. When he got to it, he caught it. Soriano was a disaster defensively. Edgardo Alfonso is strong consideration. Played 8 seasons, but the numbers don't really match. Alfonso has Cano with 217 home runs, Alfonso 120. RBIs is 861 to 538. Run scores 845 to 614. So a lot of that was Edgardo Alfonso didn't play the full season. A lot of those seasons, Cano played in about 400 more games. So obviously the numbers are going to be lopsided. But if you wanted to argue that Edgardo Alfonso, prime Edgardo Alfonso, I can see that. I don't. Obviously, it's not who I picked, and it's not who I went with. But I could see the case. I can see you wanted to tell me that. Because Alfonso at one point, it's early on in that Met career, he was really good. He looked like he may be someone who would have a Hall of Fame type career. So the votes there, Cano had 11, Alomar 1, Torres 1, Willie Randolph 1, then Edgardo Alfonso had 4, and Soriano 2. So that was the voting amongst the field for second base. So, but for me, I couldn't bring myself to get away or get off of Robinson Cano. If you caught me in a different mood, I might put Torres there. And I know it's crazy to put someone there who's only played two seasons, 62 home runs. if you think about it, Alfonso Soriano hit 121 in 7 seasons. And Soriano was known for being a big home run hitter. Well, he had 121 in 7 seasons. Torres was half that in 2 seasons. So again, I think if you wanted to make a case for Torres, I think there's a strong case for Edgardo Alfonso, especially in his prime. He's a very good ball player, strong defensively. But if you wanted overall longevity, I think it just screams out Robinson Cano, second base. So for the field, Robinson Cano. For myself, Robinson Cano. So far, third base, shortstop, second base, the field and I are on the same page.
Every time that my shine speaks, I may slide out on a dolo tip, convincing your wife to hop on the pogo stick. Got a yoga bitch on some comic book stretching. Told you on the blessing, man, guard your wife. It's been 4 years and the squad's still tight, but it's a new time with new rhymes. Did it in due time. My crew shine, don't try to with the zoo kind, unless you feel like fighting the champion. That's a battle in a Brighton and it can't be won. With so much props, my neighborhood's like a movie set, looking envious, and your girl didn't do me yet. It's all good. There's always time for some action. My faction, the main attraction, cause reaction.
Our second Zudu break of the show. We're going right back into it. So we've covered second base, shortstop, third base. We missed the most important one. Need someone to throw the ball over to, and that'll be first base. Now, full disclosure, and this will sound crazy from a lifelong Yankee fan, maybe just because I like breaking my brother's chops, but also partially because, he was hurt a lot, and once he got hurt, he was never the same. So I was not the biggest Mattingly person as far as my favorite. Now, as a Yankee fan, obviously I love Donnie Baseball, and what Donnie Baseball did for his career was amazing, and how he played the 95 playoffs, and to this day, I think one of the coolest moments I can imagine was Mattingly's home run against the Mariners in the playoffs. He hit one into the bullpen, not the bullpen, into the bleachers, and it gave the Yankees the lead late in the game. And it was just really cool to see somebody who had struggled so much with health, not on the field, but with the health. So I mentioned Mattingly at first. It goes to when I got most of the responses back, Mattingly was the winner from the field, and I really went into it kind of hoping that I would be able to find a case for somebody else. I would have happily voted for, whether it be Keith Hernandez, Tino Martinez, things like that. But when you start looking at the numbers, you can't. You just really can't. There's no case for anybody outside of Mattingly. Mattingly in 14 seasons. So the career numbers, he dwarfs anybody. I mean, Mattingly with 14 seasons is by far the most. Tino, Keith Hernandez, and Giambi all had 7 seasons. So 7, he's literally played double the amount of years. Again, a lot of them hurt, but 1,785 games. Mattingly still hit a career 307, 222 home runs, 1,099 RBIs, 1,007 runs. Hernandez, 7 seasons, 880 games, hit 297, 80 home runs, 468 RBIs. I was somewhat young, and I wasn't a Met fan, so I don't know the Mets as well. A lot of these stats surprise me. We're going to talk about in the pitching department how two particular pitchers stunned me, how close they were, and I would have thought one was superior to the other. But when you go with Keith Hernandez, not a home run hitter, 80 home runs over his Met career is certainly not anything too crazy. With Donnie Baseball, had a lot of great seasons. You can go with 85, Donnie Baseball, 324, 35, 145, and 48 doubles. You can go 86, 352, with 31, 113, and 53 doubles. Hernandez's best year, 309, 10 home runs, 91 RBIs. There's really no case. There's no case. And then Mattingly, Hernandez, you want to argue something? Who's better at first base? That's an argument. That's a discussion. And there's really it's kind of a trick question because there's no right answer. Both were amazing. So you can take it either way as far as which way you want to put it. But defensively, argument. But better player, especially in his prime, who would you rather have up there? Prime Don Mattingly is about as good as it gets in the history of this game. Good as it ever got. Unfortunately, the lower back, this is before, I had back surgery years ago. I'm pretty sure when I had my surgery in the early 2000s, it was a lot more advanced to what the options Mattingly had in front of him in 1987. So, injuries without injuries, Mattingly, who knows who we're talking about. But despite the injuries, there's no one that surpassed him from a standpoint. Hernandez is close. John Olerud with some really strong seasons. Tino Martinez some great seasons. So there were some. If you want to tell me that the kid now in Queens, I mean, I don't want to, as a Met hater, I don't want to say it too loud, but he's like the coolest kid in the face of the earth. This kid just freaking gets it. He's doing things for Tunnels to Towers. And, that hits home for me. Staten Island, shout out to the Siller family. Rest in peace to firefighter Steven Siller, my guy Mr. Siller, and all the Siller, like my guy Mr. Siller, because there's so many of them. But anyway, I'll just leave it at that. All of them, all the Mr. Sillers, especially to Mr. Steven Siller, one of our heroes. Alonso just really gets it. Could you put him ahead of Don Mattingly? I don't think so, not yet. I think Mattingly's a cautionary tale of what injuries can do. But if you want to talk about a kid who just has the total package from handling the media, handling the pressure, performing, and most importantly, hitting 50 freaking home runs. So, we do this podcast in 10 years. You might be telling me Pete Alonso's ahead of Don Mattingly. I might agree with you. He's special. Giambi, I love the Giambino. I agree, not a great player. Had some great years. Olerud, shocked. I was stunned. I'm going to pull this up for me now. Was really surprised at how good a years Olerud had. In 3 seasons with the Mets, Olerud hit 315. Sorry, 2 seasons with the Mets, 1 with the Yankees. 315, 63 home runs, 291 RBIs. I would not have thought that. I'm going to look a little further into Olerud here. I just would not have thought that Olerud had numbers like this. That's Tino. Highlighted 3 for Olerud here. In 97, 294, 34, and 102. Following year, 354, 22 and 93. The other year, 298, 19, and 96. Now, some of you are hearing these numbers and not that impressed. Some of those years, when you hit 20, that was slugger numbers. I remember I was giving Danny Tarble a whole lot of money. Danny Tarble had 25 home runs a year, and that was a lot back then. Now you got Gleyber Torres popping 40 out from second base. So the game has changed, and there's been... But as far as the ball being juiced, who knows, and things like that. But I can tell you, the game goes through highs and lows. Offense dominates, defense pitching dominates, offense dominates. All we're going through, this is not the hitters haven't caught up to anything. The pitchers will now figure out something, and we'll get back to those dominant, low ERA seasons, I'm sure of it. This is just a phase that baseball goes through, in my opinion anyway. But nonetheless, Mattingly, that 85 Mattingly, the MVP, finished top 10, the MVP, 4 seasons. Mattingly was just, all Yankee, all heart, all everything. And Don Mattingly. So we got Mattingly at first base for both the field and for my team. So everyone agreed on Mattingly. Everyone agreed on Cano, Jeter, A-Rod. If I look back on it again, the only suggestion I could make is maybe, Gleyber Torres to second base. But infield-wise, I'm sorry, Met fans, we did not find any room for any Mets infield-wise. But let's go to somewhere where we did give the Mets the benefit of the doubt. And, it was after, like everything else here, not with my heart, with stats, with looking at it, looking at the numbers and such. So, catcher. Here in New York, and I made some phone calls, reached out to people, because I was, I'm proud to say, relatively young in these early years. Relatively young when when Gary Carter was out there. Like, I wasn't really watching the Mets in 1986, so I wasn't really sure. But anyway, we have Mike Piazza, Gary Carter, Jorge Posada. Those are the 3 most likelies, or the 3 that, actually really the only 3 as far as Yankee Met catchers over the last 30 years or so. So Piazza, phenomenal career, Hall of Famer. Posada, great player, great career. Posada wasn't the starter as long too. Posada was the backup. Posada had to wait his turn behind Girardi. Gary Carter, not a lifelong Met, only a Met for a few seasons, and definitely had his better years. He had his better years in Montreal, and he had some of his best Met year was pre-85. So kind of hurt Gary Carter. Also, like I said, none of the 3 were spectacular defensively. Posada with 17 full seasons. But, the one number that struck me the most was Piazza played 8 seasons for the Mets. Posada played 17 for the Yankees. Posada hit 275 home runs. Piazza 220. So in 9 more seasons, Posada hit 55 more home runs. Hard to ignore. Hard to ignore any of that. can't find a way, even though part of me would want to. I'd want to insert some kind of a bad Sam Champion joke here. And believe me, if I had a catcher, let's say Pudge Rodriguez was a Yankee for more than that cup of coffee, if there was a guy I could put there and say, you know what, I'm sacrificing offense for defense, believe me, I would have. But you can't. Piazza was too good. Piazza was just phenomenal. Had tremendous career. Hall of Famer, like I said. Posada won't be in the Hall of Fame. Gary Carter is a Hall of Famer, but a lot of that has to do with Montreal. Posada's best year, 99, hit 303, 40, and 124. Okay, and I'm sure he DH'd some of the games in interleague play, but most of that's catching. Most of that's as a catcher. So, this is pretty short and sweet. It's just pretty obvious too. I think you got to go catcher Mike Piazza. As far as the voting went, Piazza with 11 votes. They were 4 for Carter, 2 for Posada. My brother Brian and Beresford somehow did not put a catcher, so they elected to not go catcherless. They must have had official catcher, throw the ball home, and as long as the ball beats the guy to the plate, he goes back to third, I guess, in their league. So nonetheless, Piazza. So we got first base, Don Mattingly, second base, Robin Cano, shortstop, Derek Jeter, third base, Alex Rodriguez, catcher, Mike Piazza, both for the field and for myself. Okay, so we're going to just stay with the offense. And now we're going to jump and we're going to go to the middle of the field. We got, it's important to be strong up the middle, they say, and we're going to go into center field. Center field, one of the most important positions on the field, that your outfielder tracks down the most ground. With center field, there were 2 to 3 candidates. We went with 3. I think 2 were a little stronger than others. Mookie Wilson received a few votes, and Mookie Wilson was a phenomenal player. And a little known secret, Mookie Wilson once lived on Staten Island. Mookie Wilson once resided on the same block as me, as a matter of fact. Mookie Wilson once had a residence on Glenwood Avenue. Now, this is not where I live currently, but where I grew up, Mookie Wilson once stayed there. So it came down to Bernie Williams, Carlos Beltran. As we know, Beltran played more left field with the Yankees, but some center field. With the Mets, he played mostly center, and I think until I'm not sure if him and Lagares crossed paths. Actually, it was one of the reasons he left was the Mets were high on Lagares, phenomenal. Lagares, great the glove. I mean, my goodness, one of the best. Really one of the best with the glove. Probably still in baseball, but his offensive game never caught up. So you compare Bernie Williams, Carlos Beltran. I'm a New York Yankee fan, core 4. I can watch videos, brings tears to my eyes. Love the Yankees. Love Bernie Williams. Love the person. Love what he is. Love what he stands for. The aloof personality. Just love it. So stats-wise, 10 seasons in New York, split between the Yankees and Mets. Beltran with 1180 as far as games go, 1,180 games. He had 265. He had 205 home runs with 739 RBIs and 704 runs. Bernie in 16 seasons, so 6 more seasons, 2,076 games, 297 average, 287 home runs, 1,257 RBIs, 1,366 runs scored. So those numbers, I guess I'm reading them to you, and I guess it's easy to read in the bottom of the screen. I don't know if the numbers portray themselves like they are in my head, when I say them verbally out loud. So you get a guy like Bernie. Bernie had some high average years. 99, he was he didn't finish nearly as high as the MVP in 99. I thought he was 11th in the MVP, but 342 average, 25 home runs, 115 RBIs, 2,000, 307, 30 home runs, 121 RBIs. Led the league in hitting in 98. 98, we were the best Yankee, one of the best Yankee teams ever. He had 339, led the American League with 26 and 97. A great Yankee and a great ball player. But unfortunately, I don't think he's going to find himself in the Hall of Fame because the career numbers don't quite hack it. Whereas Carlos Beltran is going to be in the Hall of Fame. And yes, a lot of it has to do with things he accomplished in Houston and most significantly in Kansas City prior to that. And I'm sure there was maybe another stop for him along the way. But Carlos Beltran will find himself in the Hall of Fame. But a Hall of Fame career is not putting you on these lists. I don't care what he did in Kansas City. But nonetheless, Carlos Beltran and Bernie Williams defensively, comparing the two as two different sides of the coin. Bernie Williams was a very poor defender. Good when he was younger as far as the speed, could get to everything. But as he got older, the speed slowed down, and those long legs took longer to get going. And he always had a little chicken wing for an arm. Johnny Damon had a stronger arm than him in center field, and Johnny Damon also had a chicken wing for an arm. So Bernie Williams defensively, early on helped, but towards the end kind of hurt us. Whereas Beltran was a stud defensively, especially when he was a little bit younger. Especially with the Mets playing center. He played more center with the Mets. Some great defensive years. His best season, 275, 41, 116 with 127 runs scored. That's the type of offense he was capable of. Playoffs do not count. We did not include playoffs. I forgot to say this whole podcast. No playoffs should be incorporated into this. Because to be quite honest, if we incorporated playoff success, then the Mets would have no chance. Because the Mets haven't made the playoffs, quite frankly, very often in the last 20-some-odd years. So no playoff success included. But if we did include playoff success, Bernie Williams is the all-time leader in a lot of categories. He's not the leader. He's first, second, third in a lot of different things, mainly because of the amount of games he played. But I would almost still take Beltran because Beltran has some memorable playoff appearances for many teams. But nonetheless, the field picked Bernie Williams. The field was filled with Met fans. A lot of Met fans voted Bernie in himself. Bernie with 13 first-place votes. Beltran with 4 votes. We had some for Mookie Wilson. Trying to think of who else we see here. Mookie Wilson. Patty Emery put Darryl Strawberry in center field, which was a nice idea, and I agree with Patty. He did, early on in his career, play center late in games. But nonetheless, I don't think Strawberry would really someone we'd slide in the center field. Nonetheless, Bernie won the vote. Bernie is the field's pick. But you know what, on my team, I have to go Carlos Beltran. I need the guy. I need a better defensive player. I need the guy who's clutch. I should say the guy who's clutch because Bernie's clutch too. But I got to go Beltran. Much better defensively. Gives your team a way better center fielder. And I would say a better hitter too. Not as a consistent hitter as Bernie was over the course of his career. But, in a big spot, if you tell me I can have Beltran up there or Bernie Williams, I'm probably going Beltran. And I know Met fans right now are cringing thinking about him taking strike 1, strike 2, strike 3 looking. I'm going to go with that being the anomaly more than the anomaly more than the norm when it comes to Carlos Beltran and his successes on a baseball field. So tough decision, and me as a Yankee fan going against the field. But the first thing against the field would be center field. The field takes Bernie Williams, and myself, the Unforced Turnovers podcast baseball team, will take Carlos Beltran. So moving right along to the outfield. Now, at first, I had everybody fill it out for right field and for left field. Problem is, right field and left field fluctuates a lot. And some guys played both. Strawberry is a perfect example. Mostly right field for the Mets, mostly left field for the Yankees. So it became that kind of a problem for a few guys. Ricky Henderson, Beltran even played a lot of left. So some guys had Beltran as their left fielder, which is that's perfectly legit. Dave Winfield played right and left, more right, but definitely played some left. So this is how we did this. The guys voted right or left. I just counted votes for right field and left field together. So I added them all up, and so there were 20 teams, 20 people picked. There were 40 votes for just right and left field, and then I plugged in accordingly who won. So left field, but I'll do my position as I speak to you now. Left field. Tough to fill. Don't know which way to go. Right field, tough to fill. I think Darryl Strawberry is the no-brainer, right? Strawberry, in his best years, was just somebody who, 284, 39, and 104, or 269. He had 39 to lead the league in 101, 13 seasons, 293 home runs, second only to A-Rod, 847 RBIs, and 767 runs, okay? So that's outfield. Outfielder one. Corner, I'm going to say corner outfielder. Corner outfielder one has to be Strawberry. Cannot leave Darryl Strawberry off this list. And then, not to mention his 5 seasons with the Yankees, how well he played. Hit 22 home runs for the Yankees one of those seasons. A lot of big moments. Unfortunately, cancer resurfaced. At one point, he missed one of the World Series runs. But despite that, Darryl Strawberry was a really good Yankee. I mean, he made his name with the Mets, and he was famous with the Mets, and did a lot of great, phenomenal play for the Mets. But he was a great Yankee too. And you really can't, you have to, if you're going to put a corner outfielder, you can debate whether he's left field or right field, but, Strawberry has to be there. His career number's too good. His ability's too good. And it just, that swing too. Strawberry swing. I mean, what a absolute picture of beauty. just the kind of swing you want, just to watch him drop that barrel of that bat down and boom. And that ball flew. Man, I remember one game with the Yankees. All my memories are from the Yankees. I don't have memories from the Mets. I'm not a Mets fan, right? So 3 home runs against the Orioles. Every one just better than the other. The guy was just clutch. He was, came into the Yankees and had a bad reputation from the Mets, and I'm sure it was well-deserved, even from his time with the Dodgers. But, was a model guy in the clubhouse. And, of course, the best moment, maybe my favorite moment in the history of sports, I shouldn't say favorite because it's a bad thing overall, but the brawl with the Orioles years back, Graham Lloyd came out of the bullpen throwing the first punches. Darryl Strawberry was in there wrecking shop, and he was out there in a one-man mission trying to get at Benitez. And the fight went on. Darryl got clocked a few times, and at one point, Darryl just found the edge of the pile. Now, Benitez was up against the dugout steps, and Darryl came around the corner, went all around the right side, and, he didn't catch him clean, but he turned, he cocked back, and just tried to knock Benitez's block off. And then went flying, he fell into the dugout and got the shit kicked out of him just from being in the dugout there from all the other Oriole players. But, the guy went in there head first, ready to fight for his team. CeCe was that Yankee. CeCe kind of took that on. From 2009 on, CeCe's been the first guy at the dugout ready to fight for his teammates. And quite frankly, I'm curious to see who takes that role for the Yankees now. It's a very important role. It's a very important leadership role. Baseball's a lot of unwritten rules in this game, and you kind of want to have someone like CeCe or like Darryl Strawberry to regulate stuff. So I'm going to hope that the Yankees do have somebody to take that place. But nonetheless, Strawberry and his beautiful swing have to be one of the corner outfielders. Okay, so again, we're going to try to eliminate the left and right field for now and just say Strawberry is one of them. So after that, you have to go with who else other than Strawberry. So right field-wise, Paul O'Neill, 9 seasons, 1,254 games, hit 300 for his career as a Yankee. 303, 185 home runs, 858 RBIs, 720 runs scored. Aaron Judge had 4 seasons, had 1 spectacular season. Now, again, you wanted to say prime, you want to make a case, you want to tell me Judge, you want to tell me I'm going to take Judge based off the 1 season. I think if the 1 season was last year, then maybe you could make a stronger case. I don't think you can now because the kid hasn't shown he can be healthy. The kid's shown to be everything else. Great kid, great teammate, all that other stuff. And he's easy to love, much like the guy over in Queens. But he's just not quite. I don't think you can make a case for him necessarily. At least a legitimate case. So then corner outfielder-wise, you got a lot of other names to fit in there. Hideki Matsui jumps off the page. 7 years, 292 average, 140 home runs, 597 RBIs. Dave Winfield, 9 seasons overall for the Yankees, 290 average, 205 home runs, 818 RBIs. Ricky Henderson was on a few of these lists. We added them all up. Ricky was actually on 2. 2 in center field and a few as left fielders. So Ricky got votes to be on this team. The best leadoff hitter of all time. You could throw in the fact he had 368 stolen bases as a Yankee in the Mets. You consider him. Cespedes, definitely someone you have to consider. 4 years, but a lot with Cespedes was his playoff. He did a lot of his damage in like a 3-week stretch. He did a month stretch where he just carried the Mets. I mean, you want to say prime Cespedes? You were saying who had the hottest stretch? Cespedes. The hottest stretch I've ever seen a baseball player have. At least a local baseball player, in my eyes. What he did a few years back, carrying the Mets to the playoffs. He had different home run. He had a home run every other night, one deeper than the other. And he got that $100 million contract because of it. Then in the offseason, he decided to fight a wild boar or something and did some Galliano stuff. But, Cespedes is a consideration. So it basically came down to more of an opinion thing, I guess. If you want to tell me you put Matsui there and left for the people that voted for him, yeah, listen, I can't argue that. You want to tell, or in the corner outfit, I should say, you want to tell me you love Sheffield. Sheffield, listen, 3 seasons as a Yankee, 1 as a Met, 86 home runs, 312 RBIs. I mean, one of the coolest swings, not the prettiest swing, and I don't know if it's something you teach in a instructional league anywhere, but watching Sheffield hit was worth the price of admission alone. Okay, Winfield, my favorite player. Let it be known, my favorite player of all time, Dave Winfield. Great in right field, cannon for an arm. Again, not all of his seasons with the Yankees were somewhat pre-85, so that kind of skews the numbers a little bit. But nonetheless, it's a tough decision. But long story short, the guy who was the most consistent, the guy who hit 300, the guy who was a rock in right field, the guy who, we're not including playoffs, but the guy who, hit third for a lot of those World Series teams, hit, and then 3 spot. Moved up and down the order. As he got older, he went, moved up. But for the most part, hit the 3 hole for the New York Yankees. Supplanted Don Mattingly from that spot, as a matter of fact, years ago. So with the field and with my own team, we both went with Paul O'Neill. I went with Matsui. I wrote Matsui's name down. At one point, I was Ricky Henderson. There's a strong case for Henderson, too. You want to have the best leadoff hitter ever. The guy with the most stolen bases and most runs scored ever. I mean, that's not a bad decision. I personally went. Ricky was an asshole in New York. He was writing. He was dropping fly balls on purpose, letting him drop in on purpose, not hustling, wanting to get traded. Ricky was a prima donna, and I'm not sure when the bright lights were on, do I want Ricky in a big spot? I don't know. As far as Ricky over Paul O'Neill or Ricky over other guys. So Ricky Henderson did not make my team, did not make the field team. Neither did a lot of the guys that were close. Sheffield, Dave Winfield, Cespedes. Just wasn't Matsui being the toughest to omit. A lot of guys you can pick went Paul O'Neill. So you got Carlos Beltran in center field. For me, Bernie Williams center field for the field. And then we both agree on corner outfielders. So then we went to pinch hitter. Now, the reason I picked pinch hitter was this. If I pick a DH, it would heavily favor the American League and would be a disadvantage to the Mets. So I went pinch hitter. Now, I said with pinch hitter, you don't have to pick a guy who's necessarily pinch hitter. Now, the guy who won for the field was, for everybody else, was Lenny Harris. And Lenny Harris, at least for my generation, was by far and away the best pinch hitter in baseball. Lenny Harris, for his career, well, the numbers aren't very impressive as a pinch hitter as far as what he did. It's not like he was a 500 career pinch hitter, but he had 200 career pinch hits. Record-wise was about 500, but he had a lot of at-bats and a lot of chances as a pinch hitter. So you count those for Lenny Harris. And if you're picking the best pinch hitter of my generation, definitely Lenny Harris. And the field voted in Lenny Harris because 2 guys voted him in. But the question posed, I said, I want you to pick whoever you would want up in a big spot, as long as he wasn't in your lineup. A lot of guys receiving votes. David Wright, 2. Harris had 2 votes, and he won. Bernie Williams had a vote. John Olerud, Paul O'Neill, Alex Rodriguez. My brother Brian picked Luis Sojo. I mean, not the conventional pick, but listen, Luis Sojo was clutch. Gary Carter is a pinch hitter. I picked Ricky Henderson. I wanted Ricky Henderson. I wanted a guy up there, big spot, gonna get on base. That was my logic. So I picked Ricky. Giambi had a vote. My guy Jimmy Clark voted LeMahieu. You know what? That's a great pick. That guy can really hit. Matsui, Mike Piazza. My cousin Heather, picked Rusty Staub, which is great. The only problem is Rusty Staub is not eligible because he retired in 1975, but it would have been pretty cool. Nonetheless, another vote for Tino Martinez. So a lot of different guys and a wide range of pinch hitters, and there's really no right or wrong answer. It's more of a fun question. You can't debate the pinch hitting successes, except for A-Rod. My guy Patty Emery picked A-Rod. I remember specifically A-Rod being a terrible pinch hitter. But listen, in a big spot, you never know. But I went Ricky Henderson. So the field went with Lenny Harris, and I went with Ricky Henderson. Again, I go with Henderson. I just want someone to get on base. I wanted my pinch hitter. My lineup is so stacked that if whoever's up next, it's going to be someone who can knock it out of the ballpark. Let me get someone pinch hitting spot, small strike zone, get on base, Ricky. And then once Ricky gets on base, he can just cause havoc, cause damage, and make things very difficult for pitchers. So we're going to move along here to our pitching staff. We're going to go with the starting 5 rotation, the 5-man rotation, as well as the setup guys, and of course Mariano, the bullpen. Before we do that, we're going to bring you our next Zudu Break. Zudu Break coming on up.
Chance, watch me do my dance. dance. Cycling up the mountain like my name was Lance. Please God, just let us get a chance so we can put it down. Been the talk of the town since I was fat and round. Rick rocked the crown and Mark spun that sound. You know how I do. Been reppin' Zoodoo since Jordan 1, 2. Fab signed the clue and Jill was Mark's boo. Shit is deep when I'm rolling in the streets. Speak my name, dog, you be sleeping in a week. The kid begs, put it in your ears. The kid begs, man, step and stand clear. And that's how I ended with the yeah. The kid begs, you best to stand clear.
All up in your bitches where you might find me. I'ma start to spit, they might sign me. Make these till I'm 90. No, I'm rolling deep, Zoodoo all behind.
Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that Zoodoo break. All right, keep it going. Let's keep it going. We're going to the bullpen now. We're going to get a right-handed setup guy and a left-handed setup guy to put in front of Mariano. Okay? And again, same criteria, except with this situation, the guy had to be a setup guy. Okay? You can't tell me I'm going to take Wetland and make him the right-handed guy and Chapman and make him the left-handed guy. You can't do that. It had to be somebody who was a bullpen guy, somebody who pitched as a setup guy, not as the closer. Orozco, we had to let go because he pitched, the way the Mets did it back then, there was kind of a rotation based on the situation. So we allowed Orozco. Orozco's allowed to get votes, but someone like Chapman and Wetland, no. We didn't allow that. So some votes some guys did not read the rules thoroughly enough, and I had to disqualify their picks. Nonetheless, so here we go. Left-handed setup relievers, okay? Left-handed setup relievers over the last several years. Now, John Franco was the Mets closer, but he did have a few seasons, 4 of them as a matter of fact, as a setup guy. So Franco was in, but only those 4 seasons where he set up Benitez. Jesse Orozco, 8 seasons with the Mets, 1 with the Yankees. A great individual left-handed setup guy. Kind of had a first career with the Mets as an actual relief pitcher and part-time closer. And the second half of his career, lefty specialist, pitched well into his mid to late 40s. Okay, Mike Stanton, the Yankee Bulldog, just a great, tough left-handed pitcher. Andrew Miller had a season and a half with the Yankees, and if you weren't taking seniority or longevity into the equation, Miller was dominant with the Yankees. We ended up making the trade with him, and we got a lot of pieces back. He was part of the Clint Frazier trade, to Cleveland. So we did well in the trade, and obviously a trade we would make again. But nonetheless, and Andrew Miller has since not been nearly as productive, has been hit by the injury bug pretty badly. Last contender there for the left side, Pedro Feliciano, who, we'll start with him. Saw him on a few of the sheets, and I immediately kind of rolled my eyes as I do with a lot of Met fans say anything, but that's a joke, Met fans. But Feliciano, 9 seasons, 484 games, which is the most amongst any of the relievers, again, as setup people, the most. Low innings, though. So he pitched in 484 games, only 382 innings. So a lot of specialists. Again, Feliciano's been more of this inning, but 350 strikeouts, 3.33 ERA. So Feliciano, while certainly wouldn't put him on this team, fantastic. John Franco, the setup guy, listen, was really good. He did a good job in front of Benitez. Orozco was good, but again, Orozco would have to have blown me away stats-wise in order to take it because I didn't want to have someone who was closing games there. And again, Miller, but honestly, with my team and the field, it's Mike Stanton. Mike Stanton was just too good, just too good and too consistent. Mike Stanton was somebody who, in 7 seasons, 456 games, 407 strikeouts, 488 innings. In 2001, in 76 appearances, 9 wins, which is there alone for a bullpen guy. 2.58 ERA, 80 innings pitched. He finished 16 games. 16 times he went on the mound and finished the game. So a lot of them, maybe when he came in the game was tied and they pulled away. Maybe it was a little before the specialized closer too. Maybe these unfinished games that were close. And 78 strikeouts in 01. 78 strikeouts in 76 games. Mike Stanton was for that stretch of time, the late 90s, early 2000s, Mike Stanton was phenomenal. And I think his statistics, along with his consistency, is the reason that he was voted the left-handed guy. It was actually a really close vote. Stanton and Orozco, actually, Stanton 7, Orozco 6. So really close there. A few votes for Franco. Feliciano would have voted. Miller would have voted. So But we both groups went with Mike Stanton. So out of the bullpen, you got a trusty veteran left-hander coming out of the bullpen. Then on the right side, we'll move right from the left-handed side to the right-handed side. On the right side, we have another discrepancy, whereas I picked someone that the field did not. Okay, right-handed side, a lot of guys, most notably, and I'll just tell you now, the field's pick of Jeff Nelson, 5 seasons, 331 games, 334 strikeouts, 3.47 ERA. Dellin Betances, 8 seasons, 358 games, 621 strikeouts. Again, 358 games, 621 strikeouts. 381 innings, 621 strikeouts. Phenomenal numbers. Roger McDowell, I think he may have split saves a lot with Orozco. 5 seasons, 280 games, 228 Ks, 3.13. And David Robertson, 8 seasons, 438 games, 570 strikeouts, 2.82 in 434 innings. Okay, the field went with Jeff Nelson. Nelson and Stan, probably the best combination of, well, not probably, the best righty-lefty sub combination of my lifetime. Just a great clutch performer. Nelson had that sweeping, on the slider, I believe it was like a little sweeper. It would come flying across the zone. Really, he was just as tough on lefties and righties too, but death. I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry, not just tough. He was also tough on lefties, but he was death to right-handers with that big sweeping, all the movement with Nelson. So he stayed there. We stayed there with Nelson as far as him being certainly a candidate, and the field picked Jeff Nelson. Now, for me, I didn't pick Jeff Nelson. Nelson was really good, no doubt about it. But he wasn't lights out. He wasn't necessarily. I think Stanton was more consistent, to say the least. The statistics tell me Dellin Betances. His strikeout numbers are impossible to ignore. He had 135 in 90 innings in 2014. So statistically speaking, it's Betances. I mean, he just had, been so dominant. Career ERA at 2.36, ERA below 2 in several of his seasons. Lights out. But you know what? I can't take Betances. Just bottom line, I've seen the kid, blow in some big spots, but not so good. Long windup, has a hard time. If he's off, he has a really hard time getting back on track, finding the strike zone. He's such a huge kid, 6 foot. I shouldn't say kid, he's probably 30 by now. But at 6'8", 6'9", there's a lot of moving parts, and if one part is off, it screws your delivery up. And I feel it happened to Betances a lot. It happened to Betances on the mound, where he would just walk people at will. And while his ability to strike somebody, if I needed a strikeout, I'd go Betances, definitely. But not how baseball works. So I didn't pick Betances. I didn't pick Nelson. I didn't pick Nelson because I love Nelson, but I wanted dominance, and that's why I go with David Robertson as a setup guy. Right-handed setup guy Robertson in the 8 seasons, 438 appearances. Now, this is just as a setup guy. He had 9 seasons. The other was as a closer. I didn't count those numbers. The strikeout numbers are there, 570. They're not Betances strikeout numbers, but only 50 less strikeouts than Betances, which is very impressive. And during that time frame, he is much more under control, and was known as the fireman, had the ability to put out fires. Guys on base, he would come in, and sometimes he'd make his own fire and put it out. He would let the guys on base, and then he would put the guys on base and then strike out the next 2 to get out of the inning. In 2001, 76 games. Oh, that's Mike Stan, excuse me. Robertson, on the other hand, in 2011, 70 games, 66 innings, 100 strikeouts, 40 hits allowed, 1.08. 40 hits on the season with a 1.08 in 70 games, 66 innings, and 100 strikeouts. Amazing dominant season. Like I said, 8 seasons, 438 appearances, 570 strikeouts, 434 innings too. So he was not a specialist. 438 games, 434 innings. So most of the times, if he went out there, was pitching innings, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. Robertson got that ball to Rivera a lot. He got the ball to Rivera for a better part of 8 seasons. Great Yankee. Came back. Actually, was one that was in the bullpen the previous 2 years. Had a rough time in Philly last year, but wish Robertson the best with his health. Hopefully, there's actually a famous story where they were having a party in 2009 at A-Rod's house. No, excuse me, CC Sabathia's. Was it CC's house? No, A-Rod's house. A-Rod's house hosting a party. Everyone jumped in the pool. Robertson got thrown in the pool, and he still bitched about it for a couple of days later. So not sure how mentally tough David Robertson was off the field, but on the field, David Robertson, no-brainer. Give me David Robertson. Be David Robertson on the right side. Give me Mike Stanton on the left side. For the field, they went the traditional Yankee tandem of Stanton and Nelson. Excuse me. Nothing wrong there. And then obviously the closer, Mariano Rivera. So going up and down, for myself, first base, Manley, Cano, Jeter, A-Rod. Strawberry and left, O'Neill and right, Beltran, center, Piazza. Robertson, Stanton. Okay. For the field, we have Manley, Cano, Jeter, A-Rod, Strawberry, O'Neill, Bernie Williams in center, Piazza, Nelson and Stanton, and then with Mariano. So we have our teams set. We have our teams. We have our first pinch hitter. We have our bullpen set. We have our stacked Yankee Met lineups. Last thing we got to do is put together our pitching staff. Because like we said, offense wins games, defense wins championships. And in baseball, your best defense is that day's starting pitcher. And I think the Yankees in recent years, have gone with that theory of just jacking the bullpen up and kind of ignoring the starting rotation. Signing relievers and adding on guys and doing different things to deepen the bullpen. Ottavino, for one, seemed like an unnecessary luxury last year, and we could have been signing, someone, going after starting pitching with that money instead of adding to the bullpen. But I think the Yankees have gone away from that logic nowadays, because signing Garrett Cole this offseason, giving Cole the money he wanted, making sure Cole decided to become a Yankee. It got back to the Steinbrenner. When I say Steinbrenner, I mean George. While we're at it, rest in peace, Hank Steinbrenner died earlier this week, so rest in peace to Yankees co-owner Hank Steinbrenner, the quieter of the two, but the more brash. I remember when he first, when Big George first died, Hank was in the public eye, just saying anything and smoking cigarettes, and he was actually cool to watch, much more by appearance, more my kind of guy than Hal. Hal was a little more suited up and a little more reserved, nonetheless. And I missed Hank. Hank stopped talking to the press years ago. Not really sure why, but rest in peace to Hank Steinbrenner. Moving along, we had to create the starting five. The starting five. This is the NBA. The starting 5-man rotation. Okay, and it wasn't very easy. There's a lot. It ended up, I have the same 5 guys as the field does, with a lot of debate, and you could go flip a coin for some of the guys in the end. We'll talk about all of that. But I have the same starting 5, but I have a much different order. And so how it worked was I asked people for 5 starting pitchers. But I said label them: starting pitcher 1, starting pitcher 2, starting pitcher 3, starting pitcher 4, starting pitcher 5. I then tabulated all the votes, and I counted them up. Same way they do it for the Cy Young. At least a similar way, I believe. Anyway, I can't say I'm certain how the Cy Young votes are counted. But I counted all up, and I gave points. You get 5 points for a first place vote, 4 points for a second place vote, so on and so forth. So it was close. One guy, actually, just make this easier for me. The top 2 guys, votes-wise, were Dwight Gooden and Jacob deGrom. Now, Doc Gooden is the overall starting pitcher 1. He's the one that we went with for both the field and for my team. Dwight Gooden as starting pitcher 1. Okay, so SP1, Dwight Gooden, he 2,098 strikeouts, 2,510 innings, 171 wins. In 85, went 24-4 with a 1.53 and 16 complete games. 276 innings pitched, 8 shutouts, 268 strikeouts. That's more strikeouts than innings pitched over the career. 171 wins. Later on, came on to the Yankees, pitched great for the Yankees at times, threw a no-hitter for the Yankees. And one of the more memorable, he did it during the middle of the Knicks playoff game, so I didn't really get a chance to enjoy it like I would have in normal situations. But nonetheless, Knicks playoff game, I don't think about how long ago that must have been, right? But nonetheless, you're not doing your due diligence. DeGrom got a lot of first place votes. I don't know. Never seen DeGrom pitch in a big game before. Great stats. We'll talk more about DeGrom as we go down the list here. But Dwight Gooden, just dominant. There's really no way you can convince me otherwise to not have Dwight Gooden. More Met Dwight Gooden than Yankee Dwight Gooden, obviously. But if you get a time machine and you put any of their primes, you put prime Dwight Gooden on that mound, you can make a case for him being on the mound like for an all-time team ever. And as ridiculous as that sounds, fine. I mean, but one season at his best, 24-4, 1.53. 276, 208 shutouts. That's some 1920s numbers in 1986, 1985. Okay, so 16 complete games in that season. Again, drugs are, cocaine's a hell of a drug, famous line, and it is, and unfortunately robbed us a lot of Dwight Gooden. But starting pitcher 1 for both the field and for myself, Dwight Gooden. Now, starting pitcher 2 for the field is DeGrom. Listen, DeGrom's numbers are preposterous. I mean, in 6 seasons, 1,255 strikeouts. He had 2 just dominant seasons. A couple of years ago, 10-9, 1.70, 269 Ks, 217 innings. If you look at it, I realize things are different. Some people had DeGrom ahead of Doc. I mean, in Doc's best season, he threw 70 more innings. Had strikeouts. Ooh, DeGrom, 1 more strikeout. DeGrom, very impressive. DeGrom's also striking out a lot of Marlins. Especially those 2 years ago, it was a terrible Marlins team and a rebuilding Philly team. That's not a very strong division there in the NL East. Just point blank, though, he hasn't really done much yet. Regular season and success, and if you want to tell me he belongs in your rotation amongst all these years over guys that have proved to be 20-game winners consistently over the years, that's fine. I mean, his numbers are amazing, and he's a fantastic pitcher. But until he does something, even just wins big regular season games, the guy has 66 career wins. I know the Mets offense has a lot to do with that and his run support and all that other stuff, but at the end of the day, he does have 66 wins. Until he shows me differently, has a chance to pitch on a bigger stage, and the Mets, for their sake, hopefully get better and have a chance to improve. You can't tell me he's just Kershaw. Dominant regular season stuff, and not what I would take in my SP2. So for the field, starting pitcher 2 had DeGrom. For me, starting pitcher 2 unequivocally was Andy Pettitte. Andy Pettitte, that he of 2,020 strikeouts, again, only with the Yankees. He had several more with the Astros. We took a little pit stop there for 3 years. He threw the most innings, 2,796, 219 wins. Best year, 21-8, 3.87. Pettitte's numbers weren't mind-blowing. He never had those years where he struck out 110 guys. He wasn't a strikeout pitcher. He wasn't a numbers pitcher. His ERA was never this, he never had those 2.22 ERAs. He's not Pedro Martinez. What he is a pitcher. And the best big game pitcher in my lifetime. And someone who, when he lowered that cap and had his nice and low and was pitching in playoff games, there was nobody better and nobody more consistent. Nobody, you could argue different things. He probably had his best as a rookie, 96, John Smoltz, head-to-head, 1-0. Pitch. I remember in that game in 96 in the Braves World Series, Torrey had him bat in the bottom of the he had him bat in the bottom of the 8th. Oh, sorry, he had him bat in the top of the 9th so he could pitch in the bottom of the 9th because the left-hander was up. So he actually pitched to the first batter of the 9th inning and then had him out. So in a 1-0 game, they left Pettitte in to pitch in a 1-0 game late. That's how critical it was, and maybe how different the things are done nowadays. Nowadays, it'd be the closer automatically. But I remember he went from Pettitte. He took Pettitte out and brought in Wetland with a runner on, and that was a long at bat to Luis Polonia. The Wetland threw him 9 straight fastballs, and eventually Polonia kept fouling them off. And the last one, boy, it looked like he got it, but no, just died into O'Neill's glove and right. And the Yankees secured a 1-0 win. But that was an Andy Pettitte masterpiece. I wish they left him in the game. I wish he had a chance to finish it. And there was many starts like that over his career. Pettitte was, I don't have official stats in front of me, but just great after a loss too. Just someone after a loss or after a game, kind of just somebody who was just world class. Andy Pettitte easily could be my number 1, if not for Dwight Gooden. But Andy Pettitte is a special pitcher, and someone I would put as my number 2. Okay, so number 2 for the field is DeGrom. For me is Pettitte. Starting pitcher 3 went David Cone. Both the field and myself, ironically, had Cone at 3. The ultimate hired assassin for the career, both Yankee and Met career. Cone did 7 seasons with the Mets and 6 with the Yankees. Until I did this, didn't realize how close that was. 2,060 strikeouts, which is the most amongst these players we're talking about here. Excuse me, not most other than Dwight Gooden. I should say, excuse me, Doc had 2098. 145 wins, 3.52. The best season was 85, 20-3 with a 2.22, 8 shutouts, 213 strikeouts. When he came to the Yankees, it was a game changer. It was like we brought in this hired gun, and you know what? He hung around. We re-signed him that offseason, brought him back, and Cone was just lights out. Then I remember years later he caught an aneurysm, missed most of the season, came back, and his first game back from an aneurysm had a no-hitter going through 6 innings, and Torrey had to take him out. I mean, he was at a pitch count and stuff, but you wonder if you left him in the game. And granted, you don't do that because I think Johan Santana showed what you do. You leave a guy in too long to get a no-hitter. But Coney, his first game back from that aneurysm, no-hitter. Kind of guy Cone was. You give me any era, any team, I don't care who it's against. You tell me I got Cone on the mound, you got a chance to win that ball game. So I don't care if you want to make him David Cone, Mets David Cone, Yankee David Cone. Just give me Cone, man. Just give me Cone. So, excuse me, both for the field and for my team, give me Cone. Starting pitcher 3, David Cone. Now, starting pitcher 4, the field had Pettit as their 4th starting pitcher. Starting pitcher 4 for me, easy, is Roger Clemens. Roger Clemens is one of the best pitchers of all time. Roger Clemens is, he actually beat his steroids case, so I'm not sure what the steroid accusation still hangover is. I mean, he beat it. He went to court and he fought it and won. There has to be something towards that. But nonetheless, what do you think he did steroids or not? Roger Clemens is one of the best pitchers of all time. Certainly a lot of his damage was done with different teams, different eras. But from talking like my guy Cormac Gordon recently, he hated Clemens, but you have to recognize how great he was. 6 seasons, 175 games, 83 wins. In 6 seasons, 1,014 strikeouts, 1,103 innings. Roger Clemens. I just can't. He's just too good. He had dominant performances, dominant seasons. His best year with the Yankees, 20-3, 3.51 with 213 strikeouts. Again, it goes back to DeGrom here. The wins. It's not fair to DeGrom with the wins, but you know what? With DeGrom, wins matter. Pitchers find a way to win games. They give you 2 runs, you gotta give up 1. Unfortunately with DeGrom, he had historically poor run support, and I can't blame him for his lack of wins. But it matters. It does matter. Winning games factors in. Trying your best or doing your best and not being good enough is not good enough. So I go Roger Clemens. 4th pitcher, Roger Clemens, one of the best pitchers of all time. Came back to the Yankees on more than one occasion. Big trade year. I mean, we traded Wells to get him a long time ago. Again, big seasons. It wasn't like he only had his best years with other teams. Again, with the Yankees, 20-3, 3.51, 213 strikeouts. Just a great pitcher. Hall of Fame type pitcher. The Hall of Fame will be one day. Hopefully, if the Hall of Fame would pull their heads out of their asses a little bit as far as the way they're doing things up there. You got guys in that thing accused of a lot worse. Let Pete Rose in too while we're at it. Maybe I might do a podcast just for Pete Rose alone. So I have Roger Clemens as starting pitcher 4, and the field has Pettit as starting pitcher 4. So again, we have the same names, just in different spots. And then starting pitcher 5, I have DeGrom, and the field has Clemens. Again, I think DeGrom's amazing. I think DeGrom could be great. I just don't put DeGrom ahead of any of those guys. And to be honest, I'm not sure I put DeGrom over a few guys that were omits, because starting pitching was by far the most difficult to omit. I mean, I omitted my favorite pitcher of all time, El Duque, Al Leiter, Bartolo Colon. The toughest to omit was CeCe. If you told me right now, honestly, I may even change my vote now and put CeCe ahead of DeGrom. I've seen CeCe do it in big moments. I haven't seen DeGrom do it in big moments. CeCe's special, man. I'm not a big fan. I don't think he belongs in the Hall of Fame, but Mike Mussina's got to be considered. Tanaka. You want to see regular season numbers? Check out Tanaka's stats. David Wells, Syndergaard, Santana. Here's the most surprising thing out of my research here. Ron Darling, Sid Fernandez. If I asked you, Met fan, right now, or any baseball fan, who was a better player, I would think most would say Darling. At least that's what I would think, my memories. El Cid in 2 less games. Darling had 257 games. El Cid 255 games. 99 wins Darling, 98 wins El Cid. So even there. El Cid had 300 more strikeouts. Pitched more innings. Darling with a slight edge in innings. And El Cid with an ERA almost like Darling 3.50. El Cid 3.14. 3.14 ERA as a Met for Sid Fernandez. I guess we have room for the fat guy, but I was baffled by that. It's the lowest ERA amongst qualifying starting pitchers, amongst all the guys we named outside DeGrom is El Cid. Sid Fernandez. CC Sabathia, just from all his greatness, how great he was in 2009, the leadership. I probably have him as number 6. Even if it wasn't for DeGrom's undeniably strong numbers, I'd put him there. If we incorporated playoffs, obviously DeGrom wouldn't have a chance because he never really had a chance to pitch in the playoffs. Tanaka, David Wells, El Duque, a lot of great pitching. Syndergaard, he's kind of fallen out of favor. I think his mouth is writing some checks for him his body can't cash. But Syndergaard is still very young, has a chance to be a great pitcher in his own right. Ron Darling was staff ace in the 80s, and even though apparently El Cid had better numbers, so not a Mussina guy. I don't think he belongs in the Hall of Fame, but certainly had a really good stretch as a Yankee. So, here we are. So, that's the teams. We went through this, went from beginning to end, went up and down. We went and covered the Yankees and Mets, kind of just like I told you we'd do. Here we are. We're all done. Teams have been settled. We counted them all up. Rosters are in. I want to thank everybody who participated to this survey here. I want to thank everybody who took times out of their day. I know, we're in a pandemic, so people have a lot more time on their hands, but people have families. And Patty Emery has 4 young kids. Took the time to fill this out for me. I want to thank him. I'm not going to name everybody individually, but I want to thank everyone for taking the time to fill this out and to share their views. I'm even going to thank Lanigan, even though Lanigan thinks that Derek Jeter doesn't belong on his team, which is quite comical. Maybe if you see him, you could ask Danny to explain his logic between leaving Derek Jeter off of a baseball team. If you're trying to win a game, it might make sense to get the winningest player that any of us have ever seen. And the guy's 6th all time in hits. Might want him on your roster. Lanigan went the other way. Who knows? We miss baseball. I miss baseball. Talking about this was kind of just a way for me to get my baseball fix. You should see the amount of papers in front of me because I'm old school. I print things out still. I have a ton of papers here. They're going to be useless after this podcast, just from stats. Just so I wanted to make sure that my opinions were backed up by statistics. I believe that's how the root of all arguments. It's great how pre-Google, how arguments would last for years. Now Google solves everything. You look up stats immediately. So in baseball's a dying sport at times, and the game it suffered. The kids these days with their attention and their instant download generation. So baseball doesn't apply to them. Appeal to them. Basketball appeal. It's running and jumping and being fast and shooting threes and being Steph Curry and LeBron James. Not a lot of kids say I want to be Aaron Judge. It's sad, but there is hope. I have my social media. I see my guy Jimmy Clark playing baseball in the backyard with his kids. I see my guy Danny Lee in the backyard with his kids. My guy. Unfortunately, my buddy Tyler, he was the Met fan of the group, but the younger brother Dylan, he decided to be a Yankee fan. As far as baseball goes, I think Dylan got a little advantage over his brother, so he's going to be torturing his older brother for years to come, unfortunately, for Tyler nonetheless. But just to those guys as parents and all the other parents out there raising their kids to play the great sport of baseball, I hope it continues because we need baseball in this country. We need baseball. It's America's pastime. It's just a beautiful, beautiful summer tradition, and I hope that they find a way to bring it back. I don't care if it's in Arizona. I don't care if we're playing all the games in Florida. If you don't know, they're talking about playing all the games in Phoenix or in Arizona where the spring trainings are, perhaps splitting it up and playing half the games in Florida and the other half in Arizona where the teams play for spring training sites. I don't know. All I can say is for sure is I miss this, and I miss baseball, and I miss watching the Yankees play every night. I miss coming home and at 7 o'clock, or if they're on the West Coast, 10 o'clock, or if they're playing in Chicago, 8 o'clock. But somewhere along the way, getting first pitch. I want to see Garrett Cole wearing the pinstripes. I grew up on baseball. This is what I was done and how I was raised, and it's the sport that I love the most as far as from my lifetime. I didn't grow up watching basketball. I didn't grow up watching football. I grew up when I was very young. Baseball. Those other sports came a little bit later in life. So everyone, please be safe. Stay inside during this pandemic. Follow the rules. Support your local businesses. I'm a West Brighton guy. Get out there. Go to Kettle Black. Go see my guy Dave Shea at Kettle Black. Check out Wing Wednesdays. Check out Taco Tuesday. I'm sorry, I'm making that up. I don't know if they have a Taco Tuesday special, but they have specials every day of the week. Great drinks. Go see my guy Terrence Haggerty over at Jody's Club Forest. Go get yourself the best hot dog in the league. Get yourself one of them nice steaks. They got a bunch of different stuff there. Great cheese steak, or the teriyaki steak's ridiculous. A lot of great things on the menu there. You go see my guy Swampy over there, Randall Manor Tavern. Just reopened. Actually, I'm recording this podcast on the Thursday that he reopened, so he's back. He couldn't get me in tonight. That's how busy he was. He had a 2-hour wait, so I actually ended up going somewhere else. But I'll certainly be back. That place is phenomenal. Go support him. Soon, in weeks or so, they're going to be reopening. They're reopening Duffy's. My guy Cormac Gordon owns Duffy's over there. Great guy, great business. Go down there and support him as well. But even if it's not the people I'm naming, go support any local business. Go support these small places, these smaller restaurants. Go out to Loon Schwan Chinese Restaurant. You want some Chinese food? As of right now, May 1st, I think, is the opening date. But Loon Schwan will be opening up again real soon. And Loon Schwan Chinese, the best food in the country. Not in the world. I'm assuming not in the country. The world. The universe. Everywhere. Loon Schwan Chinese. Shout out all these places because they're good people. They're run by people I know. And most importantly, the quality of the food is tremendous. So get out there, support your local businesses, have it delivered, play it safe, contactless delivery. Let's just get this whole thing over with so we can get back to living our lives. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. I really do. And whether you did or you didn't, I'm glad you listened. And I hope you're putting out, I'm getting better with this technology and all this button pressing, what I got to do here. So hopefully I can pump out these a little faster as we go on. But I intended on doing it with interviews and talking to people, not me babbling by myself. But here we are at the end of podcast number 2. I pulled off 2 of them. Hopefully we snowball from here. This is Ray Palma alongside Wu-Tang. I want to say thank you. Everybody have a great night, great day, great afternoon, whatever applies to you. Take care. We'll see you next time. We'll exit here with a little Zoodoo.
I come equipped with this real deal, the stuff that you feel. Put away your steel and try to hear my appeal. Before I wake, I'll lay a stake in the ground. I'll make your heart pound. Earthquake in my sound through this hip-hop underground. Check her pulse. I think I put a pause in your girl's heart. Wanna keep your honey around, you better act smart. Cause I saw her glance and I'm almost famous. I already told you, Mark D is not nameless. The verdict first hit, just emerged in a herd pit. You heard it's worth the purchase, volatile perverse shit. Murderous movements on the streets where I rest. Meticulous maneuvers get this rap off my chest. Cause facts to artifacts, I'm the genuine article. Zoodoo hit the airwaves and spread to your particles. Storming like a hurricane, got MIA. Clinton Porter's taught us to run hard each play. I win a championship with every word that I say. Forget this hobby shit and let's go get that pay. Spread my word across the earth and reach all the masses. Race, creeds, colors, sex, and all classes. The new standard landed on your stereo box. Laid it off the glass, I slammed it with a hole in my socks. The lost boys and the voices of a disenchanted youth. Work hard in school, rewarded, I've been waiting on a proof.